Bienvenidos, worldwide fans of the planet's hottest entertainment with an edge. Jaime En Fuego here for the Enfuegotainment, my namesake program, and welcoming you back for a little bit more looking back at 2020. And since I wasn't quite ready to drop my best films of the year just yet, and yes, unfortunately, we all know that, at least as of this filming today, 2021 is not necessarily, at least here in the States, turning out to be as awesome flip of a switch of everything being awesome again. Everything is awesome. No, not quite. We're not there yet. But I must say, I wanted to at least take a brief reflection about television specifically and just cycle through with the quickness everything TV-wise that I watched this past year. Now, on the previous two installments of this year-end wrap-up and look-back coverage, I have made mention extensively and repeatedly about the fact that I watched nearly 260 newly released films in 2020. So that's not even including rewatches or, in this case, television, to quote Mr. Eric Cartman. And so, yeah, I still found some time to watch a bunch of TV. Big problem with TV for me, especially in this sort of like entertainment coverage sphere of sorts, is that TV requires a much more significant amount of dedication in comparison with, I mean, a movie, it's one and done, and you can review it, and you can get some of those views or, monetization or, whatever the hell it may be. But TV, yeah, we're talking often 6, 8, 10, God forbid if it's something like my beloved Supernatural, like 20 plus episodes. Oh, my lord. Network television is the worst in that regard, even if they have scaled it back a little bit. So I'm just going to briefly run through all of the television that I feel was at least of note, although there's a couple that, must admit, I either did not like enough to finish, and that really says a lot, because I'm really one of those that if I start a show, I have to at least get through a season or whatever. But, yeah, and then there's also stuff like The Stand that is ongoing, and the disjointed structuring and the time jumping and whatnot, but as much as I adore that novel, and even the 94 miniseries, not really doing it for me. But as far as one that I only have seen a couple episodes of and then just called it quits was Picard. And I really feel like I need to go back to the CBS All Access show, especially since I'm going to be paying the monthly fee for at least the foreseeable next few weeks so I can get through The Stand and eventually do the full season coverage of that. But yeah, man, I was very disappointed with the first few episodes of Picard, aside from just getting to see Brent Spiner at the very beginning and having the data connection and the fact that it tied in with Nemesis, and even the fact that it kind of navigated those murky waters of the alternate universe that J.J. Abrams put together. But Harry Treadaway, sexy Romulan, it was cool to see the Borg get back. I need to return to it, but that was, those are at least two that, as I'm looking at the television that I at least started or took in some variety this past year, just wasn't feeling it in that particular regard. Now, as we look at a few other things, speaking of Stephen King, The Outsider on HBO, we reviewed the entire season on youtube.com/The Horror Show channel, and it's terrific. Wow. Jason Bateman, those first couple episodes, and I think that he directed as well, but just the ensemble was terrific. Wonderful cast. Definitely check it out. It's presumably not getting a second season as they had ideas for, and I wondered if that was going to be, just Tali and maybe what we saw in If It Bleeds, getting back in touch with a certain detective without trying to spoil stuff. And this is going to be very brief, as I said, as I just cycle through. On Netflix, Transformers War for Cybertron. I loved the animation. I'm not super deep into the lore of Transformers, though, and I think if I knew a little bit more about that, maybe I would have got a little bit more out of the story, but it's a prequel, at least as far as pretty much everything we have seen in at least the major lore, like the 80s cartoon. I was a big fan of Beast Wars, was not a fan of the live-action movies, and so, yeah, it just debuted its second installment of episodes, and I know it is going to be a full-on trilogy, but I was a big, big fan of that. It was compelling, great voice work all around, stakes for what I guess could be watched by kids, but there's robot death, so take that for what it is. Another Netflix project in the animated world was the third season of Castlevania. And I actually did a rundown of the second and third season on the horror show, but what an endeavor this has been. And the third season, minus Dracula, was maybe the best season yet. And this show is so brutal, my goodness. And it left it wide open for the fourth season that we have coming. There is one scene in particular where a army of not even so much undead, but I guess demons that have been pulled from, the depths of hell, and yet they still have human memories. It was one of the most crazy cathartic things that I think I maybe watched the entire year in anything live action, animated, whatever. But Castlevania, it's terrific. Ari Shankar, I want to say, is one of the main guys behind that, and Netflix just continues to bring it. After that, I'm jumping my way over to Shudder. And Shudder had a limited series that apparently has been renewed for a second season. It's called Cursed Films, and, well, this delved into a lot of stuff that, as a long-time horror correspondent and journalist and stuff covering the Spooktacular, I knew a lot about behind-the-scenes things, for instance, about, The Exorcist, and, a little bit about The Omen, and a little, obviously The Crow being the one that I think I probably knew the most about, but I didn't realize the full extent of Twilight Zone the movie and the subsequent trial after the death of some people. Also, The Omen. Damn, there was so much messed up stuff that went on there. I had heard some stuff about Poltergeist. There was only a few episodes, and some are more compelling than others, but very similar to what Eli Roth has done with his kind of horror history show. I forget the name of that. But it was incredibly compelling, and I cannot recommend Cursed Films enough, especially if, even non-horror fans would find some interest in some of the eerie parallels there. Jumping into another CBS All Access thing I have to give a shout out to if you want a full review of, jump over to the horror show. But the second season of Twilight Zone, this isn't within the spirit of the original series, and I like Jordan Peele. I like the Camille Nanjiani episode. Was that this season? God damn, I can't even remember. The two seasons have kind of melded together in a lot of ways. I really dug the one that was from the guys behind The Endless and this year's Synchronicity, I believe it was called, and Moorhead and Dizam. Their names are eluding me, but they did this awesome episode that was about octopus trying to, gaining some sort of sentience and elevated intelligence and whatnot. So that was at least interesting. But you had another time travel one with Foreman from that 70s show that was just kind of ho-hum. There is an episode about this girl who thinks she has powers beyond their own, and she's at this private girls' school and she's getting bullied. That one was good, but I don't know. For full thoughts from myself and Cecil, jump over, and that was another series that I took in its entirety here. So yes, definitely go and give that one a peek. And then we have another Netflix show that I have to make mention of, The Umbrella Academy Season 2. This was one that, as much as I fell in love, maybe even more so with the comic in some ways, there are instances where a show maybe becomes a little bit better than the sum of its parts, and that was the way I felt, at least about the first season of The Umbrella Academy on Netflix. But the second one, despite bringing in some of the Dallas storyline from the second comic arc, I felt like a lot of characters were underdeveloped in comparison, and it didn't do it for me, specifically because of the fact that another show that I took in for the very first time, Doom Patrol, pretty much out Umbrella Academy, the Umbrella Academy, and Season 2 of Doom Patrol has basically usurped that little throne of sorts for television. And, what an ensemble. We have a third season that they just started shooting for HBO Max. It's going to be exclusively there now, as opposed to, the DC Universe app or whatever the heck it was called previously. Umbrella Academy holds itself back as far as the R-rated aspects, and Doom Patrol does not. D-gaff. And so, I don't know. After watching both shows, Doom Patrol feels like I don't know. Shift gears. Umbrella Academy feels like Doom Patrol Light. Can't believe I'm saying that, because I love that first season of Umbrella. But such is life. Next, I have to make mention of Lock and Key, adapting the Joe Hill amazing comic book. And similar to some of my criticisms just now about the Umbrella Academy, Lock and Key, the TV series, is very much, it's good, but not quite great. Full review on the horror show, but yeah, it kind of defangs and declaws a very R-rated comic, but it's still, there were aspects that I enjoyed very much, especially like the jumping into the mind aspect, that we get with seeing, Kinsey's world and all that, or at least how things are inside her head. I mean, there's a lot of great stuff, and, the young actor who was in it, who plays Buddy, great. So I'm very excited to see where the show goes, as the second season is currently filming. First season right now on Netflix. That's right. Okay. Since this is in no particular order, and I'm trying to steamroll through without taking too much of y'all's time, we're going to make another Joe Hill show, made mention. And that is Nosferatu, N-O-S-4-A-2. That's right, just like a license plate. And, man, I'm sad it's over. It's been canceled. And yet, the second... the second half of Vic McQueen's tale, and going after Charlie Manx and everything, and all the Christmas Lane stuff, I actually enjoyed the second season significantly more, and I saw some criticism from fellow critics that they did not feel that was the case. But the fact that we got some of the stuff from that kind of prequel graphic novel of sorts that they did, exploring Manx's past, issues with his wife and whatnot, They took it even further back in this and explored Manx as a very young kid and some traumatic stuff, including one really nasty thing that he did. It was a really great show, and I'm sad it's over, but the story had been told, despite some loose ends that they deliberately did that I guess were kind of related to the great Joe Hill novel. But check out, I believe they're both on Shudder now, because Shudder has that affiliation with AMC. But if you want to see our full review of 2020's second season of Nosferatu, go over to the horror show. Okay, another one that we reviewed for my aforementioned bigger spooktacular channel is Utopia. And this was actually based on it was either a Channel 2 BBC, I can't remember, a British television show, okay, boasted a stellar cast, including Jessica Roth, Rainn Wilson, John Cusack, and yet this is one that I feel really, really missed the mark with, despite big-time production values, and Amazon Prime, as they've proven with Hunters and The Boys, they do not shy away from that. But it was the disjointed tone, and really more so than anything, the illogical writing that really ticked me off about this show, and I didn't get that upset when I found out that it was canceled. Sorry, not sorry. And so I have to jump into another another Amazon Prime show. And that is Truth Seekers with Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. This was a show that had more of the feels than I was anticipating. It's about Nick Frost is basically this dude who he goes around repairing wireless networks and stuff, doing that sort of IT management and technical assistance, on site. He goes out to people's homes and whatnot. But he is also an amateur ghost hunter, and he pairs up with this new recruit, Elton John, or what he has a couple different names that are line up with pop stars and stuff like that. But this show was great. I really enjoyed it. Watch our full review on the horror show once again. So this is basically just like a greatest hits of me saying everything I watched and stuff that you would be worthwhile. I already mentioned the ones that I thought were kind of suckitude. So if something like that actually has an interesting, it starts out kind of X-Files-y as there's this kind of situation of the week and then this situation of the week. But as it kind of plays out, things get a little bit different in that regard, and you realize there is an overarching story that starts to piece together. And I hope we see a second season of it. I really, really genuinely do. Okay, so now we have to switch gears and get back to that. Let's do something animated, because, Primal is a show that I'm not necessarily sure a lot of people have actually checked out. It's on Adult Swim. It's from the guy behind Samurai Jack and also the original Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the one that was in the actual hand-drawn animation, not the CGI stuff. That I love both versions, actually. I mean, the OG gave us Ventress, and just really fleshed out the universe in an interesting fashion in between 1 and 2. But Primal is something, it's a completely different beast in that regard, because Primal is a prehistoric show that has donuts for dialogue. None whatsoever. And it's about this friendship that forms between a basically, I guess she's a T-Rex, although my guitar player, Mahalo, in my band would give me a ton of shite and be like, no, it's this sort of, prehistoric Rex. I mean, he has the knowledge of the actual scientific classification, and I give him mad props. I love dinosaurs so much as a kid, but a lot of that categorization has fallen wayside. But then again, he has young kids who are into the same stuff that he is now, so props to that. But yeah, basically, it's a friendship between a T-Rex who's lost her children and a Neanderthal who's lost his family. And the first half of the show was what I'm trying to remember if we got it earlier in this year or if it was last year. I think it was late last year, and then we got the second half of the series this year, second half of the first season, and it's already been renewed. But it's gory, and it is enthralling, invigorating, and also just major props to terrific writing where you can just impart so much emotion just from facial expressions and situations and what characters will, a dinosaur and a man who can't talk or, something on its way to being a man will do. I don't know. It conveys so much with saying so little, if anything. So, yeah, Primal is terrific. Okay, as we move along, now it's on Netflix. It was originally on ESPN, and I reviewed this on Enfuegotainment, and that is The Last Dance. And it's the Michael Jordan era Bulls, and the fact that they had different episodes focusing on not just Jordan in his early career, but we had a Pippen episode. We had a Dennis Rodman episode and all of his exploits with Carmen Electra and all that different stuff. And the fact that we looked at this amazing championship era that was, 6 titles in 8 years. I'm a big basketball guy. Go Suns. And yeah, man, it was just very fascinating to see a very uncensored, R-rated sort of behind the scenes of the cussing and the confrontation and the frustration when things aren't going your way and yet still being able to forge forward to success, and also seeing the building blocks that came before with the loss to the Pistons and all these different things. This was I know there's been some criticism about the fact that Jordan was like an EP, and so he just kind of molded the narrative to be exactly what he wanted, but I don't know. It was still compelling stuff, and bring more of that on. I hear Chris Webber is trying to work on some sort of thing about his days in Michigan. So for all you peeps who don't care about shooty hoops or sports ball, sorry for throwing that in there, but it was one of the best bits of television that I watched this year, hands down. It truly, truly was. Okay, another Netflix thing, and this is a Ryan Murphy project, and he had quite a few of these this past year. I didn't watch Ratchet. There was just, once again, so much to watch. But Hollywood, I did watch, being a shorter, limited series, and with a great cast. And I love that golden age of Hollywood and stuff. And I liked the whole, pull the curtain back sort of thing. Dylan McDermott's great in this. Samara Weaving's in it. The whole cast was stellar. And it was just a very intriguing look about the way things really are, who people were really sleeping with, also, dude from Big Bang Theory, his name totally eludes me and I feel awful because he has transformed into such a tremendous actor on the dramatic side of things. He had that courtroom drama he did also recently. Man, the fact that his name is eluding me, it's terrible, but I didn't watch the Big Bang Theory where he played, I don't want to say Sherman. Gosh dang it, I hate being one of those journalists who is just I have to do it, or else I'm going to just hate myself. And, okay, Jim Parsons. Jim Parsons is, I'm not even going to give the character that he plays, Sheldon Dirks. You can tell I've never watched the damn show. It did not seem very nerd genuine to me. But Jim Parsons is a hell of an actor. He's great in this, as is the rest of the ensemble. And Hollywood, it's not perfect, there's some more throwaway episodes and some of it's predictable, but I don't know. It was well shot and it was very compelling for me. Exclusive to Netflix. Check it out. My full review is here on the channel. Another one that's here on my channel. This was an AMC show. It's called Soulmates. So basically imagine if there was some sort of scientific configuration system analysis of sorts, and this is coming from somebody who isn't I was always an English history kid. My other half, she's into, math and science much more than me. But imagine if there was a means to determine who your soulmate was through just going through a series of tests. That's what the show is all about. It was a short form anthology, so each episode focused on a different person who either had the test done and some of the friction and problems that it caused in existing relationship, or maybe realizing the person you were supposed to be paired with is dead, or whatever fallout from that person you were with at one time being dead. I mean, it's got a great cast of peeps. Granted, with any anthology, there are some episodes that are so much better than others, but the dude who plays Jonathan Byers, and his name eludes me, doesn't matter, that he has an episode with Malin Ackerman, probably my favorite episode of the entire season, and it has been renewed for a second, so if you're inclined, check out Soulmates on AMC. Full review of the season, or just the first episode here on my personal channel, Enfuegotainment. Cruising right along, y'all. We now get to, we're getting to the heavy hitters. And once again, this is not a countdown, but I have to jump into The Boys Season 2. We did review this on the horror show. And the second season of The Boys, all the Stormfront stuff, her relationship with Homelander, also the Starlight stuff with Huey. Dare I say, as much as I adore the Garth Ennis comic, the Boys show, especially with the second season, I like the second season better than the first season. The second season really shows that this group between, not just Wee Huey and not just, Frenchie and not just, Mother's Milk and all these great actors that are portraying all of these peeps, but the show is better than the comics, at least right now. The comics were very much Garth Ennis trying to out Garth Ennis. He's like, oh, you think Preacher was offensive? Y'all ready for this? And that's what he did, and yet, Herogasm and just some of the craziness that they did in that comic series, I love it. But I feel like there's more heart, and some of the gender swaps, and it works. And I cannot wait for the third season of this show. Once again, full review on the horror show. So let's do another newbie, guys. Let's do one that once again it's becoming a broken record on the horror show. But Raised by Wolves, a show that was curated by Ridley Scott. He directed the first 2 episodes, but this has its slow moments, I'm not going to lie. But it is very compelling, heady science fiction on television with a budget, and we don't always get this. I mean, granted, there's been some resurgences. I know there's been a few names that have thrown at me, recently, but I enjoyed this whole, getting on an ark and leaving a dying Earth, and the religious fanaticism that, drove a lot of this, and, just a war back on Earth that even spurred the need for destruction and departure. And so, man, Raised by Wolves, especially the actors, I'm just going to leave it at that, because I know the distinction of an actress versus an actor, especially since the one who plays Mother, she's got kind of a Bowie androgyny to herself. Her performance is fantastic. Most of the kids are pretty good. A dude from Vikings is on there. I don't know his name, but a lot of people have been like, oh, he transitioned very seamlessly to this. And I don't know, man. The show is brutal. The show is thought-provoking, and I really hope it gets a second season. I'm not sure if it's actually transpiring or not, but bring it on if that's the case, and full review on the horror show. Next up, another little bite-sized bit of commentary comes from Lovecraft Country, based on the novel of the same name. We know HP. He had, despite some brilliant storytelling, he had some personal bias, which is pretty mucked up, yo, and we're not going to get into that, but this was a show I found incredibly compelling, especially with the time period of hatred that it focused upon, and this show had pretty much everything, man. I mean, from creatures to time travel to skin swapping, and yet great acting throughout. I mean, we had like a haunted possession kind of episode. I mean, yes, once again, since it was in some ways a monster of the week, yet with that overarching story a la X-Files, as I mentioned earlier, there were some that weren't as good as others, most notably where we jump back in our main character's timeline to see some of the stuff in the Korean War that he was dealing with. But nonetheless, man, Lovecraft Country was one of my favorite long-form bits of entertainment that I watched this year. Also on HBO Maxis, y'all, so check it out. Check it out. What's it all about? All right. A show that just concluded. FX by the way of Hulu. A teacher. Yeah, we are talking a very taboo, controversial topic here. I reviewed it on Enfuegotainment, and it's got kid from something Simon. I don't know. It's. I feel bad about not knowing that right off the bat, but I haven't seen the film. So anyway, him and Kate Mara are basically a teacher, the hot teacher, and the handsome senior who is underage still get involved. She's married, and basically all of the aftermath and repercussions of their relationship based on a 2013 film. I think it was Dear Simon. God damn it, I can't remember. But based on a 2013 film from the same creator of this series. I wasn't so big on the film. The film was much more streamlined and didn't develop the characters, but with all of these episodes, I believe 9, if I'm not mistaken, I was really compelled by this show, and it showed so many nuances, and actually, both characters were flawed in different ways, and both scarred and dealing with different sorts of just, those reverberations and aftermath. The subject matter may be a little much for a few, but I will say it's not portrayed as graphically as in the original film that was a festival darling. So if you can stomach it, it was definitely some of the most gripping, dramatic storytelling that I saw this year, and grounded too. Most of the stuff I'm discussing here is very much of the otherworldly variety, whether it's science fiction, whether it's horror stuff, whatever, futuristic. This is one that could happen any day, and I wonder if there is going to be a second season continuing along with their story, or could it be an anthology and it just tells a different teacher-student dynamic? Who knows? I would be curious and compelled either way. So now we're going to get to, I think it was Netflix's most watched thing this year. I reviewed it. It definitely dragged at times, but Anya Taylor-Joy, this was her year, man. Between Emma, between this, to a lesser degree, The New Mutants, which I really liked, but The Queen's Gambit was great. It really was. There were the shorter episodes I greatly preferred. I really, really did. Those that topped an hour, I was just like, oh, really? And some of the storytelling choices, I know this is based on a novel, and I know they took some liberties, whatever, but her performance is great in all of her personal flaws and weird things she has to overcome, and, having this foster mother who uses her and, whatever, without getting too spoilery detaily about it. But it was so beautifully shot, and there's few things where you're just standing up and cheering and rooting so wholeheartedly. This really did it, man. It truly did. It is worthy of its acclaim. Talk about more feel-good stuff. How could you not mention FX by the way of Hulu and the second season of What We Do in the Shadows, the Taika Waititi, Jermaine Clement show. I don't necessarily know if it got better. A lot of people said that the characters, especially the actors portraying them, felt more comfortable in their undead skin. I don't necessarily know if that was the case. I think I liked the first season better, but nonetheless, man, I mean, so hilarious. Some of the most amusing storytelling on TV, and Mark Hamill's cameo, so hilarious, and that just the energy vampire, man. I forget the name of the character offhand, but anyway, I'm not going to try to do any sort of accents or whatever, but I will just say that I anxiously await the third season of this show, and I really wish I could see the Wellington Paranormal or whatever the hell it is. It's a New Zealand only show that still has not migrated over here to the States. Although I wonder, with the success of what we do in the shadows, it's got to be an inevitability. But, Guillermo, divergence at society. And I know that was from the previous season, but yeah. Okay, so now we're getting into the heavy hitters. So what I will do is I'm actually gonna save. Maybe it wasn't my favorite thing of the entire year because it's tough for me to really narrow that down. And I've talked extensively about all 4 of these last couple of shows that I have here. But The Walking Dead, I just have to give a big shout out to the end of the Whisper War and how this show has really found its footing when, with the departure of some big time names, there was a lot of suspicion as to how they were going to go about it. But really, the remaining essence of, Daryl and Carol and really the Negan Redemption Tour, I had mixed feelings about it, but it really ended up working for me in the long run. Jeffrey Dean Morgan has killed it, no pun intended, as this character who has slowly morphed into an anti-hero. Alpha and, man, great villains, creepiness. The show is back in just prime form. I know that here in 2021, based on, certain pandemic shooting restrictions, they decided as opposed to ending it with the episode that we got recently, they're actually going to do another couple episodes, including the Here's Negan with Jeffrey Dean Morgan's actual wife playing the character of, Lucille, which is just great. So, but this show, it's back, man. I tried a little bit of World Beyond. I couldn't do it. I'll probably get back to it at some particular point. But, so that's the thing. The Mandalorian continued to be incredible and just build that universe, man. Bringing in spoilers, bringing in Ahsoka, bringing in that big cameo at the end, which I won't spoil. But, damn, man, it's, there were some episodes I didn't like, most notably the Ice Spiders, but aside from that, I mean, Bo-Katan, and just, it's very much like the Rebels continuation that we always wanted, and I love this show, even if some have criticized that, it's side mission after side mission, and not as much character development as they want, but this show just got me going, man. It really, really, truly did. And now we only have 2 left that I'm going to throw at y'all and say that I watched this past year in 2020. That there was a limited series that was canceled. They thought they could have a second season, and it wasn't confirmed for one, though. They just left it open so that they potentially could continue Brave New World on Peacock. It's canceled, unfortunately. It had the look of a really big budget show. You could tell they spent some Skrilla on this shizzle, and I adore the Aldous Huxley book. I personally prefer it to 1984. I know that 1984 came out almost 2 decades later, and they get compared to each other all the goddamn time, but they have previously adapted this twice, both for TV. This was the first time it was like full-on R-rated, and they changed some things around, but I was impressed with the performances throughout, and I'm really bummed that the best adaptation, in my estimation, maybe not the most faithful, that would be the original one from the early 80s, but the best adaptation, hands down. I enjoyed what they changed, and it's a real pity that, being on this Peacock network, and one of their big-time launch titles, no less, that not enough people watched it. If you want to hear my thoughts on the entire season, you can see them here on Enfuegotainment. But I know they've, like Peacock, the NBC streaming service, NBC Universal specifically, I know they just got The Office from Netflix, which is them just like, give that back, mofos. Because you have to have those killer apps that are going to make people want to migrate over. But if you get the opportunity, Mr. Mercedes is also on there, which is a great Stephen King adaptation that was on the AT&T Audience Network. And obviously, you have Brave New World, which I loved. Thought it was terrific. And the last television series that I have to make mention of, and it's because it ended after 15 years, and I have a reaction here of me just weeping my eyes out about this final episode. And damn it, I have to trim it significantly that you can see the full reaction of myself and Cecil Laird on the horror show. But if you just want me in a little bit more of a condensed fashion, it's here on Enfuegotainment. But Supernatural, man, 15 years with the Winchesters. I was a little bit late to the party, but this felt as epic for the first time as I mean, the most recent would be season 11, the episode where the ascension of Chuck to God and the darkness and all that stuff, and the fact that we brought back so many of these pieces. And I just, man, a lot of people hated the way they ended it. They're like, the second to last episode should have been the last episode with just all of the memories and them, driving into the sunset, listening to, Running on Empty and all that stuff. But I love the way they finished it, man. It was really an epilogue of sorts, and it felt very true and very personal and grounded and down to earth. Very much so like the original episode. And Easter eggs galore and tears galore cried by yours truly. So, everybody, I extend the grande gracias, and that is all of the television that I gave proper attention to, with the exception of Picard in the Stand. That's why you didn't see pictures for either of those. But yeah, here after I get done editing this, I'm going to be watching the 4th episode of The Stand. So there you go. But I've been Jaime En Fuego. You can find me on all social media sectors: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube. Also Letterboxd, where you can see all of the major stuff that I watch new release-wise for both 2020, 2019, and all the way back to 2018 when I first started that thing. And there are some exciting announcements coming in the next few days after we get through all of the year-end, just looking back on the craziness that was 2020, but there was a lot of great stuff to watch. Obviously, I've called out the horror show countless times. If you want to see all of our coverage, myself, Cecil, Marsha Parker, Susie Von Slaughter, Robert Duell, and a few other awesome rotating cast members that jump in here and there. Please jump over there, like, share, subscribe, check that chisel out. But I'm Enfuego. Y'all have been better than 2020. And until the Reel of Ka comes around once more, hasta luego, Cinemigos. Constant readers sometimes, but viewers more often than not. Say thank you for spending some time with me here today. I hope we share more of this palaver sooner rather than later about the television, or streaming more so in this case. But until then, remember to stay home and watch more television. In this case, Brave New World, Peacock. Check it out.